everybody, it's vlog day 480, and I'm lost.
Okay, I'm about to post this whole thing. We'll see how much I actually cut out of this. This is a really hard subject for me to talk about today, so it's pretty long, because I think I probably should just keep pretty much everything in it. So yeah, we start out with a little bit of vlogishness, and then we move straight into me talking for a long time about why I'm so much healthier and happier now than I was a year ago, and how you guys are actually a really big part of it. I think that's enough of a segue into it. Anyways, vlog magic. It's amazing how suddenly and completely it got cold. The last few days have been brutal. I just gotta get used to it, I guess. It's funny, after living in West Africa for a while, I don't do the cold nearly as well as I used to. Or maybe I've always been a pansy about it, just didn't realize it. I don't know. I don't think so. I think I'm more recently a pansy. My pansiness aside, yesterday I finished, I had to dig it up. I didn't know where it was. I ended up having to find it on Dropbox, but a story that I wrote about 4 or 5 years ago, I think, that I wrote for my world. It's another like internal story, so it's been written within, like that book on magic that I referenced the other day is written by a character within my world, so it's something that exists within my world, very late within the history. Similarly, this parable or poem or whatever it is, I wrote a while ago as another thing that exists within my world. And if you've read Into the Nanton, and maybe Shadows of the High Ridge too, you've seen reference to it, the seventh death. And it's a poem that is the origin of that phrase, that turn of phrase. And I've never released it, I've never done anything with it because I just wasn't sure if I don't know, I just wasn't particularly, I just didn't feel certain that I should release it because it deals with death, obviously with grief and with suicide in particular. I didn't really feel super confident releasing that. But now I feel a little bit more so, especially after like a couple years ago, or last year, I guess, being stuck in Spokane and feeling, I wouldn't say that I was suicidal. I'd be taking it a step farther, I think, because I never wanted to kill myself. I never like had ideations or fantasies about dying or anything, but I hit that really, really super low point where I thought to myself, if this is all life has to offer, I just don't want to do this anymore. And I hit a really, really dark place within my life. Looking back, it definitely helped me to have a little bit of a greater appreciation and understanding for people who do find themselves another couple steps down that road. And I'm thankfully really far away from that now. I'm really happy and healthy. Paris has done wonders for me. Just being here and living here has helped me so much. And I've hit rock bottom in some other ways along the way, but I feel like everything's kind of stepping out of that. And so going back and revising that and reworking it, I'm going to look over it, I think, one more time. I might share with you guys, though, because I'm thinking of publishing it. It's very short. I'm thinking about doing it in like an adult kids book or a kids book for adults. I'll probably share it on Patreon first and let my patrons see it. And then after that, I might release, after getting kind of feedback there, release it to the rest of you and see what you think about it in text only form. And then I'm going to be talking with Nimit, the guy who did all this art on the walls here. He and I are going to be talking next week about possibly teaming up to make something bigger happen. So if that's something that interests you, do let me know. I keep forgetting to read the please subscribe sign hanging behind the camera. I haven't done it for like the last few days. Phil's gonna kill me if he's been paying attention. So please do subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. Hit that like button, leave a comment, especially in particular if you're interested in reading the 7 deaths. Please do let me know. I think it's short and it rhymes. And so I think, hopefully something you'd be interested in. It's all iambic, So anyways, I gotta go because I gotta teach English and I'm now officially running a little bit late. But a little bit late considering that I always try to get there early, considering that I'm always scared that the train is gonna break down. You get the idea. Could be late, could be early. We'll find out as we go. Apparently there's a market out here on Wednesdays. I did not know that. You can buy brooms, sweaters, pillows, toilet paper. Ooh, I definitely need toilet paper. This is like kind of like an overflow outdoor, not supermarket, but what's going on? really don't know how much I've talked about that. Like I've mentioned that my time in Spokane was really rough, and Judge Jones likes to remind me how much better life is when you're not moving couches. I don't think I've ever really gone into the fullest detail about what made that time so hard and why I ended up there. We talked a little bit about it, but maybe we can hit up a couple of points on that today. Lighting situation in here is both awesome and terrible all at the same time. But we'll just do a quick overview of this because I am going to be going back to Spokane in not too long, and it'll be really good to see my family, but I have no desire to go back there. And also this is why, part of the reason why I like to be clear that I'm not from Spokane. I've only lived in Spokane for a few years actually. I went to college in a town just outside of Spokane. I grew up in a small town way south of Spokane, like 70 some miles south. It was kind of the regional hub growing up, but I definitely don't really have an affiliation with Spokane besides a couple of years that I've spent there. But the years that I've spent there have all been really hard. I've never had a good time living in Spokane. The reason I ended up going back there, so here's a really quick history. I went to school, like I said, just outside of Spokane. And Spokane was where we went to have some fun, but I had a really good time in the small town that I went to school in because I just had really good friends and I had a really good time with them. Lived in France for a bit, moved back, and when I was in Spokane, when I came back was when the recession hit. Really had a hard time finding work, really struggled to make any money, fell way behind just in everything and was just miserable. Ended up escaping that, thankfully. I ended up going out to mercy ships, serving on board the Africa Mercy for 3 years, living in a number of countries in West and Central Africa, living here for a bit, went back to the ship, lived in the Congo, and then ended up back in the States and traveled around for a couple of years as a consultant. And when I went back to Spokane, it was because I needed to save money because I was about to launch a tech company. And I had a couple of book deals on the table and I was like, something good is gonna happen. I'm gonna move back in with my parents, save some money, and launch this company. And hopefully one of these things is gonna happen. Either the tech startup's gonna go well, the book deals are gonna come through, something's gonna go well. They did not. And I ended up stuck there largely because I just couldn't make enough money to get out. I couldn't find any work when I was applying for jobs elsewhere, and the only work I could find in Spokane was manual labor, literally moving couches. That's why Judge Jones brings it up all the time. It's because I was literally, either working for a thrift store, moving stuff on and off a truck, or moving for a staging company, moving stuff on and off the truck. Both of those companies were great. The thrift store that I worked for is a fantastic organization. It's a nonprofit that does amazing work with refugees. And then I worked for a staging company, moving stuff, helping people sell houses. In both instances, I simply was not making enough. I was barely keeping my head above water. The people I was working for, lovely people, but I was not in a good space. Anytime, if you've ever been in a place where you're not making enough money, you know how much stress that puts on you, and you know how hard it is to even be grateful for what you have, because what you have is still not enough. And so it's really, really challenging when you want to express your gratitude to somebody for giving you something like a job, while still feeling this imbued sense of, like, I'm dying and I need something else. The other thing about it is that Spokane does not offer a lot in the way of supporting the creative communities. It doesn't really have a creative community. There are creative people in Spokane, and there are people that make efforts to try and bring creative vibrance to the city. But the support is not there from the community itself. People don't spend money on the arts in Spokane. The city itself, very famously, was at the bottom of its category for public spending on the arts until like a year or two ago. They finally started spending more, and they still spend an abysmal amount on public art. So publicly, they don't spend much on art. As a community, they don't really value art very much, unless it's something completely mainstream, like movies or big music acts or really big regional or national writers, that kind of stuff. Those things will draw a little bit, enough of an audience to survive. So you do have movie theaters, you do have some big concert halls, you do have some big events that come through. But the music scene, the arts, the writing community, all those things are fairly undercut. There's just not a lot of financial support for them. And similarly, the attitude ends up becoming one of a survivor's attitude, and the artist community doesn't really support itself very well, at least in my experience, as compared to other places. So in Spokane, people tended to look at you and think, why do you think you're special? Why should I, what's your deal? Like, there was more of a tendency to knock you back down. Whereas when you go somewhere like Chicago or New York or here, where a lot of my experiences are, or even Seattle, people would find out about your project, whatever it was you're doing, and the initial response would be an interest, And if there was anything they could do to help, they would. People will follow you, they'll show up to your thing. There's an active desire to support you. So a great example for me right now, besides the writing, there are two examples, I guess, from me. The writing side of things in Spokane, Auntie's Bookstore and Core Coffee House were the two places that supported me very actively. Auntie's was very supportive of me when I was publishing my books and working the convention side of things. They were really cool. They were really helpful. I always pump Auntie's books. And Core Coffee Shop was really supportive in that they let me just camp out and write and work there every day. And then they also hosted my artwork. They hosted artwork for a while. At the same time, you notice that within the community, there was not a really big turnout to like buy my books or go to a signing or anything like that. Even though I had a decent turnout for the signing I did at Auntie's, there wasn't like a huge movement or like this sense that people were like, oh, you're one of us, like we want to support you, we want to help you. Like there isn't a place like this. And similarly, with the art that I hung in Core, they were really cool to hang it, but I lost money on that because I put all this money into making this art from Into the Nanton available and did a really, really cool layout within the coffee shop, and then nobody bought it. And there were a few pieces that got purchased, but not nearly enough to cover my costs. And I was selling them at really reasonable prices. But there's this level of like, I don't know, it's almost a level of suspicion almost of people like, oh, you want to be creative. And people, have this tendency there to, in my experience, kind of knock you down before they're willing to just jump in and support you. Even on an emotional level or a psychological level, we talked about how the 7 deaths that I wrote had to deal with suicide and how like I personally am not... I don't know how to define my struggles when I was in Spokane, but I was in a really dark place. And I did finally confide in a couple of people that I had long-term relationships with who were mentors and who were people that used to be a part of my life who had really kind of distanced themselves more and more, at least I felt like they had. But I finally confided in them. I told at least one of them, this is where I'm at. Like, I don't want to kill myself. I'm not thinking about killing myself, but I am in this place where I would rather be dead. I don't want to do this anymore. And we had kind of a moment, and he was supportive and said, oh, I'm so sorry that I haven't been around. I'm going to be supportive. I'm going to check in on you. And he never checked in on me again. And that's kind of there's this kind of hands-off attitude that I've received within the city that makes me not want to be there. And people will get offended. The reason I'm really hesitant to make this video is because the response is always like, well, what makes you think you're so special? And B, Spokane is great and it's everything you want it to be. There's a whole movement in Spokane. There's a t-shirt that says Spokane doesn't suck, which despite the argument coming from the wrong place to begin with, you should never start like defending from the position of a negative. It's indicative of that attitude of like, we're awesome. Like, and so there's this unwillingness to hear anything as far as like, well, actually, you just don't have the resources that I need. And for me, that's the case. Emotionally, spiritually, creatively, financially, in any way, Spokane does not have the resources that I need. But if I explained that to people and said, they'd be like, well, sure there is. And they'd try to tell me how there really were opportunities for a guy who vlogs and writes. And none of you would be watching my vlog right now if I was doing it from Spokane, right? Like so many of you have come because of Paris. You haven't come because of Spokane. None of you would be interested in my life there. Some of you were interested in my life there, and that's because you're just saintly people. But the fact of the matter is, no, it wasn't good for me creatively. I was struggling just to get anything done there. There were no opportunities for me there. It was really, really hard. And so it's really hard though, because when you have close friends or people that you were close to for a long time, people that you looked up to or that you trust or that you love, and you see that divide growing naturally because what you want in life differs. Like I don't want a standard white picket fence, 2 boys and a girl, golden retriever. I don't want the package deal that's kind of idealized in a place like Spokane. And because I fit outside the norm, I already felt, ever since I first moved up there, like the church that I went to, the friends that I had, in so many ways, I felt different because I knew I wanted different things to begin with. So that's always been there, but it's the fact that I just continually got hammered down. And there are some friends that were very supportive, one in particular that I'm thinking of, but even they were not super available. And again, there wasn't this sense of like, wow, Jay's really struggling. Maybe we should check in on him, which is a community thing. And that's human. We all need to have good communities, but especially coming out of a place like the ship where you were literally in each other's lives every day, like in the nitty gritty of it, to go from that level of community, that depth into something so hands off and cold was also really heartbreaking and really stretching in a bad way. Like it was really just kind of stretching me thin and tearing me apart. And so that's just kind of that experience in a nutshell. And so I desperately needed to get out, and I, ending up there and then ending up there again after I left. I went to the Caribbean and I came here and I thought, okay, I'm not gonna go back. But having no resources to leave leaves you trapped. And coming to Paris was a huge risk. And I couldn't have done this if it wasn't for my parents, because my parents were the ones that paid for me to go to San Francisco. They paid my plane ticket at least, which is really, really nice of them to go get my visa. And obviously my parents were the reason I was able to live rent-free while I was in Spokane. So there's a huge reason I was there, and I wanted to spend more time with them and I wanted to be with them because I love my family. And if it wasn't for them, like I wouldn't be here for so many reasons. But like I needed to get out so badly. And so coming here, when I came to Paris, many of you know this, but many of you probably don't. I had a visa that I got like 11 days before I left, but I didn't know how long it was good for. I didn't know if I would be allowed to work. I didn't know what the requirements were. I didn't even know what the name of the visa was. I just came here thinking, I have to get out. I love Paris. I love this city and I want to be here no matter what. I'm willing to take this risk. And I did, and I stepped on that plane not knowing what was waiting for me on the other side, and I put all my chips in this basket and came here, and it has worked out brilliantly, even though we still have steps to take to get out of the pit that I found myself in a year ago, 2 years ago. At least emotionally and spiritually, rock bottom is behind me, and I'm way, way out of that. Financially, rock bottom is only a couple steps behind me, and we're on our way out of that as well. And we'll talk more about that in the future. This is why it's like really important to me to be here. And it's a story that I've never told really in that. And there's more detail we could go into if we wanted to, but because in my experience, the people that I know, not my family and not some of my friends, but the people that I know by and large in Spokane do not want to hear ill of Spokane and do not want to hear ill of it. But the fact of the matter is they don't even watch my vlogs. Like there are people, I'm sure there's some people in Spokane that do. My family does for sure. My family basically are my number 1, 2, and 3 fans, and 4, and then the dogs, I guess, too, probably count up there. Nah. But the point is that like, why am I holding, again, I don't want to be negative, but I do want to be honest. And so there are still some wounds there for me in the lack of support and the lack of community and the lack of belief in me that were strangling. And if it hadn't been for the support of my family, and if it hadn't been for the fact that I believed in myself and that I was worth it and that I was talented enough and that I could do this, because people look at you like when I told people I was vlogging in Spokane, that was the other example. This is a super roundabout. I hope you guys are still with me on this because I'm probably not going to cut this much. I think I'm just going to leave it as it is. On the vlogging side, people would find out and they'd just be like, huh. And they'd kind of be like, so like, there's just this level of like, again, what makes you think you're special? Like why, who cares about your vlog? And they just look at you and kind of assess you and leave you. They're like, oh, you don't have that many followers. It's like always this social positioning thing. And people, would be cool enough that I was vlogging around or something, but no effort given, no F's given for my vlog, which is fair, fine, and you don't have to be a part of my art. But that's not a community that an artist can live in. You need people that are invested and that want to be a part of what you're doing. Then I come to Paris, and all the time, people are like, hey, it would be a good idea for your vlog? Hey, what would be cool? Hey, let's go do this thing. And that people are encouraging you and supporting you in that actively because they believe in you and they're like, wow, what you're doing is cool. They don't care that you don't have hundreds of thousands of subscribers. They don't care that you aren't, making millions. They look at what you're doing, they see it for what it is, they believe in it, and they jump into it. And there's this ability to see the value of art straight up, the value of whatever someone is doing right there, and assess it, I think, honestly. I don't think that everyone here is just like, whatever anybody's doing, but there's this ability to be like, oh, objectively be like, I think this is kind of cool, and then support it. Not try to be like, well, not try to position or to tamp it down, but to just be like, oh, cool. It's a completely different experience, and that's so much of the reason why I'm so much healthier now, almost a year after the election, but so much healthier now, 8 or 9 months after leaving, is largely because the city is good to me, the people here are good to me. There's so much more here for me, and I'm so much happier, and I'm so much healthier for that. And like I said, people here, there's just an interest, there's a care, there people really are involved here in a way that they weren't where I was. And you'll see that difference if you go back and you watch my vlogs back from when I was in Spokane. Like, I was struggling along on my own so much. And again, if it, like, I thankfully had the support of my parents and my sister and my brother-in-law, but like, yeah, it was brutal. It was really, really bad. And that's a big part of the reason why I'm terrified of getting kicked out of France. Because if I get kicked out of France, where do I go? I have other options, and especially with some of the things that are coming up here soon, my options are definitely much wider. And there are places that I would go first, and people, good friends that I would go stay with, and I'd figure it out. And I would probably ultimately end up trying to get to New York at this point, because I think that's probably the best fit for me in the States. But you guys can understand that existential dread of thinking like, oh crap, if I ever go back to Spokane, I will die. And not being very dramatic, like seriously, like I think it would kill me. Knowing that, I mean, when I went back the last time, I knew that was the risk, and I took it, and I got stuck there. And I never want to get stuck there again. Because it just chews creative people up and spits them out and does not care that it has done so. And that in and of itself is a great reason to avoid a place if you are creative in any way, shape, or form. So the things that you can look forward to, though, if you're going to Spokane, in my estimation, are Auntie's Bookstore and Pizza Pipeline. Unfortunately, Core has shut down, but it was an amazing place while it was still open. I didn't realize I was keeping it in business, but they shut down right after I left, so apparently that was the case. Anyways, this has been a really, really long vlog, a really long just kind of direct entry like this. I probably should make a little caveat at the beginning to warn you that this is going to happen, so I'll do that too. But thank you for listening. Thank you guys so much for caring, because that's one of the other things that's made a huge difference, and it's been fascinating, for me in the last couple months especially, to see a community forming around the vlog, and to seeing you guys interacting with each other that much more. Obviously interacting with me. I love the comments. I love the fact that Patreon has exploded the way that it has been crazy. But just that level of like, did I have lint in my beard the whole time? You guys got to tell me. But just the fact that there are so many people out there that care enough and that enjoy what I'm doing enough to put money down and to say, we believe in you, and if we were there, we would be helping you, but since we're not, this is what we can do instead. The people that have sent me, you know, like, my hats, Rob, or my sunglasses, all the way from Rick and Vanessa in San Diego. You know, so many things like that. Shamal with the rain jacket. You know, that kind of stuff. That's why when I tell you guys, I'm sure you can see it when it happens. Like when I got the rain jacket, it completely changed my outlook on the day. And that's why I want you guys to know that it matters to me when you jump in and when you support me and when you like the video, when you're here every day, when you're watching the videos, when you're binging and catching up, when you're dropping me messages, when you're communicating with me and like actually tangibly putting down, you know, a chip that says, I believe in Jay and like, I believe in what he's doing. Those things mean a lot to me, because the first third of this vlog was me struggling by myself with so few people who cared. That's changing, and it's hard to believe in a lot of ways that it's changing. I see it every day, and that's why it's so important to me to respond to all your comments and to be involved and to give back and to blow, you know, $150 on sending you postcards, because you mean something to me. Like the support that comes out of this and the two-way street that it really is. It means something to me. And I can never know all of you by name, and I can never, well, I'm going to try, but I can never know all of you personally, and I can never sit down and have coffee with every single one of you. We'll try. I don't want that to diminish the fact that it really means something to me. Every single one of those, interactions, every single one of those moments like really means something to me. And I think that having the context of where I've come from with this, where I was when I started, where I'm at now, helps to let you know just how much it really, really means to me. Because also to put a little bit of that fear into you, hopefully, that like, seriously, if I get kicked out of France, I'll figure it out, you know. I'll definitely figure it out. I'm not worried about that right now, but that's where I've been coming from. And that's why the prefecture dates and everything else are so stressful. And everything's just like, just that thin line of stress right through the brain with the high-pitched whine. That's where it comes from. Because I cannot go back. And I won't go back. Except to see my family, because I do love them very much. And to eat Pizza Pipeline, because I do miss pizza by the slice. Yeah, so anyways, really long. If you're still here, thanks for sticking it out. I assume you're already a subscriber if you've made it this far. If you aren't, please do subscribe. And I'll keep you up to date if I hear anything about the New York Times job. Don't worry, because people keep asking. And I do have a couple more postcards to send for those of you who sent me your addresses yesterday or the day before, last minute. Don't worry, they're coming. But yeah, I just hope that you guys know how much you mean to me in that way, in all these ways. It was a little bit rambly, but there you go. I think that should be enough time to put up a thing here that says, subscribe and I'll be happier or something like that. Might be getting a little sick too. Hopefully not. Anyways, I'm going to go hang out with Cheryl and Natasha and Andrea and their husbands and boyfriends and stuff. Little YouTuber party. I will see you. We're just going to drink wine and complain about the world, I'm sure. I will see you tomorrow.